Okay, so why did you decide to do this interview with us?
Because I love students, love kids, love high school kids in particular. I think you all know I worked in education for 20 years. So I worked with elementary school kids, high school kids, middle school kids, and kids are great. Kids are beautifully naive. And what I mean by that is you all believe and know that we can change the world, and you live your lives in that way. And I'm always inspired by that. So I'm always inspired by young people. And if this was my only job, like talk to students all day, like I would love that. Like I was that would be the best part of my job. And I'm familiar with Beacon somewhat because I used to work at MLK High School, which is like uptown from you. I think you all are. What? Where are you? 22nd Street. Where's Beacon?
West 44th.
Oh, okay. So not too far. Yeah, King is on 66, I think, in Amsterdam. So I'm familiar with Beacon. We used to play y'all in sports. I think I have some former middle school students that went to Beacon, one or two, and I was also on a uh, I forget. I was at a conference and Beacon students were there, and they were incredibly impressive. And I know about the academic work done there. So I got a lot of respect for y'all, for that. So that's why. And the topic is a topic I like.
Thank you. So you are Sunrise endorsed. So what drew you to the Sunrise movement?
A lot of the same reasons, young people organizing and mobilizing around an issue that is like really important, and an issue that if we get right, we're going to change the world, is very inspiring to me. I've attended Sunrise like rallies and events, and the way they acknowledge the indigenous land that they're on, I think is really, really powerful. Because I often remind people know this, but sometimes they need to be reminded. Our nation was built on a genocide of Native Americans. And right after that genocide, we had the enslavement of Africans. And after that, we've had segregation and sexism and continued racism and homophobia and all of that, right? So we have a history to atone for. And Sunrise recognizes that, as well as having a laser like focus on the issue of environmental justice and ending our dependence on fossil fuel, and helping us to build a better world, and like I said, throughout my time as an educator, always inspired by the ideas of students and their vision for what the world can be. And I think because of that, I have the same vision. Like I believe that we could change the world, and we don't got to wait 100 years for it. We could do it right now. So Sunrise and I are on the same page when it comes to that.
Yeah, we're glad you share that vision. And right now, Sunrise NYC is working on the mayoral elections.
Mhm.
So we're curious as to who are you ranking on your ballot and why in this election?
Yeah, so I don't know a lot of the candidates. They didn't reach out to me, which is in some ways like they should, because that's part of the work. Like when you run for office, you got to reach out to everyone, and a lot of them didn't reach out, so I don't really know them, right? I know Scott Stringer because he not only reached out, but he helped me in my campaign. So I respect him a lot for that, and I like his green proposal. I think is really powerful. And I like the fact that he's like born and bred in New York in a way that I don't know if the others are. Like he more represents the working class for me. So he would be one. The other candidate that actually reached out, that I really like everything I learned about her, is Diane Garcia. She seems to be awesome. So she would be two. And I can't even rank the others because they didn't really reach out. And one reached out, and I'm not going to say their names because I don't want to put them on blast. They reached out, and then I got back to them, and then they never got back to me until the day before they was going to launch their campaign. I was like, that's kind of shady. So Scott is one and Diane is two for me.
Okay, thanks. And like segueing to I guess the education system. Um well, a lot of us are aware that the NYC school system is heavily segregated. So how should we end that? And what do you think are the steps we need to take?
Yeah, well, just freaking end it. I mean, there's no, you don't have to be a strategy. Just make sure that each school is economically and racially diverse. I don't know what the numbers would be. I don't know how you go about doing it, but it could be done. I grew up on the Upper East Side, East Harlem section of Manhattan. I went to District 2 schools, and my junior high school was incredibly, my neighborhood, first of all, was very diverse, and my junior high school was very diverse. I mean, like, Beacon is probably similar to even this call. You can see like the diversity on the call, right? So, like, just get it done. New York City is a unique place because it's such a diverse city. So there are ways to do it. I don't know how to, I don't know the technicalities of it, but the reason why it's not being done is not because of technicality, it's because of fear. There are small groups of very loud parents who don't want their schools integrated. So they're very loud and they get what they want. If the mayor or the chancellor would just say, you know what, we're going full integration, let's do it, it would get done. But another important point I think needs to be made is the point that our communities are also segregated in a lot of ways. So we need to have integrated communities and integrated schools. So that those two things are critical. And I know, there's some things with like testing and using test scores to get into certain schools and G&T programs to get in certain schools. I'm not really with the whole test score thing. I'm more about a portfolio based assessment of kids, but integrate our schools, give kids what they need, create personal pathways for them to unlock their full potential. And that's it. Get it done. It's not complicated.
Yeah, and I think you just like answered the next question, which was how do we change the New York City application process to make it more equitable? Could you explain more about what you said about the portfolio and lead?
Yeah. So, I think someone needs to mute maybe. Okay, thank you. So kids are graded all the time, right? They have report card grades, they do projects, they take tests and classes, they take standardized tests, there are behavioral records, there's all this stuff, right? All of that sort of makes up the profile, for lack of a better term, of a student. So let's use all of that to determine, where, how to enroll a student into a particular school, not just a single test score. So I know the specialized high schools, they have that specialized test. You do well on that, you get into the school, that's like one score. For other schools, Beacon may even be one of them, or used to be one of them. Your ELA and math score in middle school like determines like the possibility for you to get in. For me, it's like, listen, let's make every neighborhood school great. Let's make every school offer everything to our kids. Let's make every school diverse. Let's provide them transportation and what they need. So it's not like kids are living in Queens and going to school in the Bronx unless they choose to. Um, and let's also build transportation where you could get from Queens to the Bronx quicker and vice versa. But yeah, like take everything, grades, whatever, take a kid's profile, social and academic, and then create diverse school structures with students and offer everything children need to thrive. I mean, that's how I would do it, if I had a chance. Every school would be amazing. Every school would highlight a student's strengths and their growth areas and provide support. Every school would have sports and music and everything else, and every school would have, you would be able to determine or be placed on a personal pathway towards success, as opposed to what it is now, which is all based on like a few test scores and luck, it seems like, in a lot of ways. And it's way too stressful, I want to say. Like, it's like applying to high school shouldn't be as stressful as applying to like college, and applying to middle school shouldn't be as stressful as it's just crazy. It's like we've lost our mind with that stuff.
Yeah, the college process is already enough stress.
Yeah.
And so, like, well, now we're in a pandemic. And so, how do you plan on getting schools back on track after COVID?
Yeah. So first of all, we need to wait and not rush. There's a lot of talk now about, we need to open schools, we need to open schools, we need to bring kids back. Like we got to slow down a bit. We have new variants out there, and they're disproportionately infecting kids now. Kids are now spreaders of those variants. So like there's a lot we still don't understand. And until we understand it, and until we vaccinate everyone, and until we uh, make sure our schools are prepared with proper ventilation and PPE and everything else, we can't even think about bringing kids back. But when we're ready, we need to hire more teachers, teachers assistants to give kids individualized instruction and lower class size. We also need to make sure, and this is from K to 12, kids get a chance to socialize with each other once again, because that's been a huge thing that's missing. So that's like downtime, hangout time, play time. That's all going to be very important. I always advocated for this, but even more so now, sports, the arts, music, all that stuff is going to be critical, because again, we need to socialize in both formal and informal ways to sort of get our minds right after this trauma that we've all dealt with. And then finally, mental health supports with counselors and social workers and the like. So we have to do all of that. And this is stuff we should have been doing anyway, but we're really going to need it now after this pandemic.
Right, I agree. And so transitioning to, I guess, um, Biden, and his presidency, what are your thoughts on Biden's infrastructure package, and do you see a way that it can actually be implemented?
Yeah, so the first part of it is really, really good. The first part of the American Rescue Plan, I think, is what's it called? I think that's what it's called, American Rescue Plan. First part of Build Back Better is the American Rescue Plan, and it's in response to COVID. I think it's really good. It brings money to states and cities and counties, which they needed, because they got to hire people back to work and they got to create new jobs. So that's key. A lot of money to education, focused on using the Title I formula. So that money is going where it needs to go, in terms of high need school districts. Money for rental and mortgage assistance, which is big because a lot of people are in danger of being evicted. It's really solid. It's really solid. There were things we wanted in it that we didn't get, like the $15 minimum wage. So we have to continue to fight for that. And the Biden administration has met with us about that, and we're still fighting for that and organizing for that. But this 1.9 trillion focus on the working class and cities and states is unprecedented. So it's pretty much the most progressive investment in the working class in like history since the New Deal. But there's another package coming, which is going to focus on infrastructure, and I'll put that in quotes, because there is infrastructure in bridges and roads and tunnels and transportation and physical infrastructure. And then there's non-physical infrastructure like the care economy, like childcare and teachers and healthcare and home health aides. That package is coming next, and that's apparently going to come around, going to start negotiating around June, July, and hopefully by September it'll be ready to go. And then there's a third package that's coming. So we're going to see trillions of dollars multiple times invested in the U.S. economy, focused more on working class people than obviously Trump, but then even Democrats have done since the New Deal. So it's a lot of opportunity. Things are looking good, but we still have to continue to push Biden and Congress harder, because whereas Biden wants to invest $2 trillion in this new infrastructure plan, Bernie Sanders wanted to invest $16 trillion. So there's a gap there. And in order for us to get to a new green, clean, renewable economy, we need to invest a lot more. And the last thing I'll say about investing is not just, we always talk in dollars and cents, dollars and cents. Money ain't even real, man. It's like it's something we created to put a value on work that someone does or that something create. If the feds wanted to type in $1 billion into my account, they could do that right now. So it's not even a real thing. The question is, do we have the resources and do we have the human capacity to get it done? And if we do, let's get it done. That's the difference between Congress and like states and cities who have to balance the budget. Every dollar spent, we need to collect taxes to balance it. But the feds can infuse money into the economy through investment. So when you see, I don't know what the federal deficit is now, let's say it's $8 trillion. When you see that, that means $8 trillion is invested in people, real people doing real work. It's not just money that was wasted, especially when you look at GDP and other things. So, yeah.
Thank you for clarifying the packages. And so you mentioned the minimum wage, and that was my next question, which was, do you think the $15 minimum wage should have been passed in the stimulus bill? And what are your thoughts on it?
Yes, and it should have been passed like 10, 15 years ago. So over the last 50 years, we've seen the economy grow, and that's measured by GDP. And over that time, wages have been stagnant. So we've had, before COVID and after Obama's presidency, one of the most robust economies ever. But we still have people across the country making $7.25 an hour. So there's not equitable distribution of wealth between labor and CEOs. So yes, absolutely, it should have been passed with the first bill, should have been passed before. But now when we pass it, it's going to be indexed. So as the economy grows, minimum wage will grow. And in a democracy, that's what you need. You need safeguards like that. We also need the wealthy to continue to pay their fair share of taxes, and we need safeguards to make that happen as well. So yes, and we're hopeful either through reconciliation, which is the next couple of bills that we'll be able to pass with a simple majority in the Senate, or through ending the filibuster, we'll pass it this congressional session.
So again, a little bit of a segue into the next question is, do you think the filibuster should be ended?
Yes. Yeah, it was put in place to stop anti-lynching legislation. Like literally, people in Congress tried to pass a law that made lynching a federal crime, and the filibuster was created to stop that. So there were Democrats and Republicans, but I think at this time mostly Democrats, Southerners, who thought it was cool that we could just let Black people be lynched and not be a crime. So, you all, I'm sure, know the history of, post-slavery, Jim Crow and Ku Klux Klan and white terror and lynching. The filibuster was created to protect all of that. And now as we evolve into a multiracial democracy, we need to get rid of all of the remnants of racism in our society. Now, obviously, that's a lot to get rid of, but as Congress, we have to be the ones to lead the way and start with what we can control. And all it takes is the Senate changing the rules and getting rid of it. And Chuck Schumer, who's a New York State senator, is the Senate majority leader. So it would be very helpful if you all contact his office, write his office, email his office, put pressure on him to continue to push to end the filibuster. I believe he wants to, but I believe he's concerned that his colleagues in the Senate may not want to along with him. So he has to be careful with how he plays it. But at the end of the day, for us to reach our full potential as a country, we need to get rid of the filibuster.
Yeah, Sunrise actually just, we went to his house yesterday and was yelling at him from outside his house.
Good job.
So a little bit of another transition to voting restrictions. So what do you think can be done about these states that are passing local voting restrictions, for instance, like Georgia?
Yeah, so there's a bill that passed the House already, HR 4, which is the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. It needs to also pass the Senate. Ending the filibuster will help that to do so because we would only need a simple majority. But uh, Majority Whip Clyburn in the House has been very outspoken on this issue, and he's like, whether we end the filibuster or not, we have to pass HR 4, which would protect voters, registered voters in states across the country, almost superseding what happened in Georgia. But, well, not but, and in addition to that, we need more Democrats to run for office and win state house offices in states like Georgia and across the country, because voter suppression is happening across the country, not just Georgia. And as we win state races, the more likely we are to push back against voter suppression. And I would also say not just state, but county, city, etc. I mean, here in New York State, we have a supermajority in the state senate, and because of that, we just passed the uh, most progressive budget in history. We're about to have we already have a very progressive city council. It's about to even become more progressive, and there are county seats and all of that. So we just need amazing people who are a little bit crazy to run for office and win. That will help to change all of the laws, both locally and nationally, that we need when it comes to voter suppression.
Yeah, and sort of adding on to that, how can we continue to raise voter turnout in marginalized communities?
Yeah, so that was actually, when we not launched our campaign, I felt, I don't know if my team felt this. I know my wife didn't think so. I felt very confident that we were going to win. And the reason why I felt confident is because I knew that I was going to knock on doors in communities that had been ignored for a very long time. And I was going to knock on those doors, and I was going to listen and engage and learn from the people who lived in these communities. We did that and we won by 16 points. So literally the skill of knocking on doors is very, very powerful. So yes, social media, yes, target those communities, yes, phone banking in those communities, text banking, all of that is good. And direct voter contact, person to person, knocking on doors, going to a local supermarket, engaging people who have lost faith in the system. That's what we need to do. And we need to acknowledge that we understand that they've lost faith. We need to acknowledge that we know why they lost faith. And we need to listen to them and learn from them and have empathy towards them, and then bring them into the political decision making process, whether it's organizing or otherwise. That's going to be key because people care. The argument is, oh, they don't care. People don't care. People care. It's just our country hasn't cared enough about them. We haven't returned the favor. So we got to do a lot better in doing so.
Yeah, definitely. And relating to that a little bit more, and I feel like we're sort of seeing this in Georgia already, but like, how do you think local politics can factor into federal politics?
Yeah, so I could speak from experience. I'm in constant communication with grassroots organizations like Sunrise, but I'm also in constant communication with local elected officials. And I I leverage them so I can understand what's happening on the ground in their part of the district, so that I'm clearer on what I need to fight for in Washington. So it's a collaborative, reciprocal, symbiotic relationship between us and them, because we all serve the same communities, we serve the same people, so we need to listen to and learn from each other. So that's essential. Um, Also we all have resources, and both in dollars and in information, that we can share with each other that can best serve the people in our districts. A lot of times, or at least what I'm learning, you know, that, you know, we work often in silos, and we're very isolated from each other as we do our work in politics. And it's just stupid to work that way. I mean, you know, we can get more done if we do it together. So that's what's key. You know, local elected officials have to be in consistent communication with federal elected officials and vice versa, so we can have a 360-degree understanding of exactly what's happening so that we can respond accordingly.
Yeah, and as I'm sure you're aware, it's a really big year for New York City in terms of we are like basically electing an entirely new body. And so why do you think it's important to vote in local elections?
I mean, if you don't vote, you don't have a voice, you don't have power. I mean, if you're, you know, what's the term? If you don't have a seat at the table, you'll be on the menu. I mean, that's kind of like what it is, right? So you absolutely have to vote in local election. But those who are running for office have a responsibility to engage with the people, to inform them of who they are, what their platform is, and what they're running for. You know, so it works both ways. Like, people shouldn't have to, you know, peel back 100 layers to learn more about who Jamal Bowman is as a candidate. It's my job to go out there as a candidate to introduce myself to people. And if candidates aren't doing that, that's on them. And if they lose, that's on them. So yes, always vote, absolutely vote in local elections, but also you got to engage, you know, as candidates, you got to engage the community. And if you're not, that's a big strike. You know, you asked me about the mayoral race, and the first thing I said was I haven't spoken to all of them, which is unacceptable. Like, I think they should not just reach out to me, but if they're not reaching out to me, they're not probably not reaching out to their constituents also, just to introduce themselves, so that when you ask me about, hey, the mayoral candidates, what do you think? I can give you a full comprehensive answer instead of just giving you the answer on two of them.
Right, right. And then this is just about your career, but can you tell us like about your career leading up to becoming a member of Congress and sort of like what put you on that path?
Well, education, you know, when you work in schools, you see what's happening in the community up close and personal. And like I said, I worked in all levels of education, K through 12. And I worked mostly in Title I schools and mostly segregated schools, Black and Latino. So I've seen the neglect, I've seen the segregation, I've seen the impact of the neglect, not just in schools, but in neighborhoods. And I've seen how that's impacted my kids. You know, you got kids struggling with so many different things. You got families struggling with so many different things. And the elected officials that, you know, were in office before me, I didn't see them really fighting for, you know, those among us who are most vulnerable. And, you know, in education, you plan your lessons around the students who need the most support, because when you do that, you can meet everyone else's needs and push everyone in the class differently. It's the same thing with regard to our communities. Who are the most vulnerable, and how do we make sure we do our job to meet their needs? So, you know, I've had kids who struggled with mental health challenges, who were doing self harm, who presented suicidal ideation, kids who struggled with learning disabilities, parents who struggled with learning disabilities, lack of employment, uh, in communities that were food insecure, families dealing with housing insecurity. You know, when you see all that, you know, it's like, and you want to do something to change it, you want to do something to help people, you know, you might think of running for office, which is what I did, and thankfully we were able to win.
So you answered this a tiny bit, but did you always know you wanted to work in Congress?
No, not at all. I guess, you know, growing up, I wanted to be a professional athlete, which is often the case in certain communities. You think you want to be a professional athlete, and then you realize you're not good enough to be a professional athlete. So I went into education, and when I went into education, I kind of got the bug that, you know, I was pretty good at it, pretty good at teaching, and pretty good at working with kids. and I just got the bug that, I just wanted to help people. That's pretty much what happened. I just like became very passionate about learning all I could so I could be as helpful to my students and families as possible. And that's, yeah, and doing that for 20 years and wanting to have a bigger sort of impact, I guess, led to me running for office. So no, it's not something I always wanted to do. And whether it was Congress or the state or city or anything else, I didn't know that I would run for office one day. I did feel though that I had something to offer. Like I knew I could be helpful if given the opportunity. So Congress just became that thing.
And what do you think in your professional experience it takes to work on Capitol Hill?
Um, I guess curiosity, um, persistence. Um, you got to hire a good team because you're only as good as your team. It's essential to this work. But curiosity, I say that because I'm a naturally curious person. Like I'm always trying to learn as much as I can so that we can change the world. So I'll talk to anyone, Democrat, Republican, whatever, to learn from them and with them. I'm also try to be humble, which means like I know I don't have all the answers to the problems out there. So my curiosity leads me to seek out what those answers might be. Um, Persistence. So an initiative and persistence. So I'm learning that like it's a skill to pick up the phone and pick up the phone and call someone and have a discussion about an issue. That's a skill by itself to make one phone call, boom. To follow up with a call or text or letter, um, or bring other people into the conversation, that is also a skill. So it's like you take initiative, but then you're persistent. But now that I've said that out loud, I'm also thinking like being an organizer is also a skill. I'm okay with bringing people into a conversation or help them focus on an issue that I think matters and is important, and bringing them in to be a part of that conversation as well. So all that stuff matters. And then finally, like I said, the team you hire is everything. I have a chief of staff, I have a district director, and then I have a district staff that has to be exemplary at responding to congressional issues and district issues. If they're not exemplary, I'm terrible as a congressperson because our job is to work for them. And then I have a legislative team and a communications team, which work hand in hand. Communications obviously helps us to get the word out about the issues that matter most to the people in the district and other issues. And it helps us to tell a story of myself and the congressional office. And the legislative team helps me think through legislation. And then we have a chief of staff who sort of manages it all. So if you have to hire a great team, if you don't, your job is going to be much more challenging.
Do you think that the same skills that helped you in education helped you in Congress?
Yeah, especially because I was a principal. So because I was a principal and a founding principal, I opened my own school. I had to hire my own staff, had to, work collaboratively to figure out curriculum and instruction and assessment and culture, had to work with the community on that. Had to, be a real listener and learner to understand the community that I served and meet their needs. So yeah, it's very transferable, the skills that I use for education and the skills that I use for Congress.
And so out of all of like your policy making and out of everything that has shaped your policy making, do you have something that stands out the most?
I guess a couple things come to mind. One, I guess you have to get, I had to get used to how influential my office is and how influential my voice is. Not just my voice, but any member of Congress, right? Like, when I was a principal, I used to try to make calls and get things done, and it felt like I was like bending over backwards and jumping through hoops and nothing was moving. In Congress so far, like I've done like one or two things and then stuff happens. Like it's like, you say something or you do something and you get a reaction, like it happens. So getting used to that level of influence is it's a great thing, but you don't really realize it coming in. And I remember we did a retreat with the squad right after we won. And Alex said something I'll never forget. She was like, when you use power, you gain more power. And the flip side, what some may think the flip side is true, which is if you use power, like don't use it all, save it. So when you use it, it's meaningful. Alex was like, no, when you use it, you actually get stronger. And I never forget that. And I feel that way now. I feel like, when I make a call and something happens, I'm like, okay, I feel myself getting stronger, not weaker. So that's one thing. The other thing is like, I, you know, I guess I expected young people to be excited by our campaign and the kind of representative I am, but it's even bigger than I expected, because like, we had kids telling their parents and grandparents to vote for us. And we have parents, I had a parent a couple of weeks ago telling me about her daughter who volunteered for the campaign, worked on the campaign, and really loves me and all this good stuff. But then she says, let's take a picture so I could send it to her. She's going to be so jealous. So to have parents talking like that is really powerful. And to have kids moving their parents to doing stuff, that's it's super powerful. I'm a parent. I have 3 kids. My oldest is 19, about to be 20. My second oldest is 11, and my daughter is 6, about to be 7. And all we want is for our kids to be passionate about something. And we hope is something good, right? Like something that's meaningful. So if my son is so excited about something that he's calling me and texting me and pushing me and all those things, I'm going to get involved and I'm going to listen and I'm going to be excited and uplifted as a parent because like, I can't get my son to call me back in a week if I give him a call. So that part of it is great. When I have like kids of all backgrounds, all races, all colors and ethnicities, who telling their grandparents and parents to like pay attention to me. That's really, really humbling and really powerful because it presents an opportunity to like, it presents evidence that young people will continue to, lead and create the world that we need.
Yeah, this is again about, as a former principal, what advice would you give to students who are struggling with remote learning right now?
I don't know, man. I visited my old school today. I just happened to be in the neighborhood and I stopped by and, I went in and, I saw kind of what was going on. And I had them explain it to me. And as soon as they started talking, I was like, man, that sounds complicated. Like, it just sounds really complicated. My advice would probably be more towards teachers and school leaders than kids. The advice to kids will be to hang in there and to speak up when something isn't working for you. But the advice to my colleagues would be, make sure you are providing space to listen and learn from your students so you can understand what they're going through and so that you can provide the resources and environment that they need. So that would be more of my, we as educators got to make sure we're doing the right thing by our students first. But students also, and you all are good at this, that's why we have this call, have to like speak up for themselves. That's really important because a lot of educators aren't aware of what kids are going through. So, you all speaking up for yourselves is critical.
Yeah, kind of going back towards like New York City a little bit. And we just passed the state legislature of our bill. I know you're talking about it a little bit earlier, but what are your thoughts on the excluded workers fund included in that budget? Like, do you feel that it goes far enough?
No, we were asking for 3.5 billion. We got 2.1 billion, but prior to that, it was zero. So to go from 0 to 2.1 billion is pretty incredible, and it makes me really proud of our state, because you know undocumented immigrants are still excluded from stimulus packages that come from Washington. So the fact that New York State made sure to include essential workers, excluded workers, and undocumented immigrants is very powerful, and it really makes me proud of the state. And again, that happened because there's a super Democrat majority in the state house, and there's a bunch of progressives that are in the state house. Biaggi, Yulin, uh, Salazar, Rojas. There's just Jabari. There's a bunch of progressives in the assembly and in the Senate who they're the reason why we have this. Them and you all and everybody who's in this movement together. So it's incredible. It's really incredible, and I'm very proud. And that's why when I hear, and we're taxing the wealthy, which is great, like raising taxes on the wealthy. But the governor and some of the people who believe this, they say things like, "Oh, if we tax the rich, they're going to leave New York." And my answer is always like, "Let them leave. Like, who cares? Like, bounce. You ain't got to be here." Number one. And then number two, ain't nobody leaving New York, man. I mean, New York is if you live here and you're wealthy, it's the best city if you live here, period, it's the best city anywhere. But if you live here and you're wealthy, like, come on, ain't nobody leaving. And if you leave, go ahead. Then then the price of things will come down and be reasonable, and there'll be a working class state. And I'm completely fine with that. Like, I don't want to be a bourgeoisie state anyway. I want to be a working class state. So anyway.
Yeah, and going back to your political career, can you describe for us like what a political career really looks like?
Yeah. So first of all, I don't call myself a politician. I'm a public servant. And I was a public servant in education, so it's the same thing. It's getting to know people. Is getting to know people and getting to know their issues, and then helping them with those issues. I mean, that simply put is what it is. And I want to do everything I can to not lose sight of that. And the best way to get to know people is to be in the community. Go to the park, sit on a bench, hang out, have a conversation, have 10 conversations, have 100 conversations, have 1,000, and you'll learn your community. So you got to be out there. You got to be engaged. Obviously, with COVID, we want to be safe, so we're doing Zooms and all of that good stuff. But yeah, you gotta listen and learn, and then do something about it. And then you got to pay attention to. Always pay attention to like the historical context as well. Like, so in our district, are any of you from my district? Probably not. I live in the Northeast Bronx, and okay. North Bronx in Lower Westchester County. So in my district, if you're Black or brown, you're more likely to be in poverty and have asthma and a whole bunch of other stuff that is pretty much like that all over the country because of our history of racism, right? If you're white in my district, you're more likely not just be upper middle class, but incredibly wealthy. So we have areas of the district, Fieldston area, Riverdale, Bronxville, Scarsdale. We're talking about like $10 million homes, right? So that's the district, and that's unacceptable. Like, it's just unacceptable. And look, wealth is what it is, right? Like, I don't want to, say that people who are wealthy are evil. I'm not saying that, but there should be some level of equity, like some level of wealth sharing. And even if I'm not a billionaire, I should be able to live in a clean, safe community, go to good schools, and if I work full time, and I should be able to have health care and be able to save a little money and take a vacation if I want to, right? Like, even if I'm not a billionaire. And that's the problem. Like, we have a country where that's not the case. People work hard, and it's like plantation capitalism. It feels like you're on a plantation where you're just working to survive. You're not getting ahead, you're not thriving. And on the flip side of that, you're being exploited through like predatory lenders and other all kind of stuff. So yeah, just just get to know people and get to know your community, and then work to fix the things that are broken in the community.
And so we touched upon this. Young people are like very active, politically active. Yet at the same time, we are reluctant to run for office. So what do you say to that, and what is your advice?
Yeah, not everyone has to run for office. You know, there's so many things you can do without running for office. And when you run for office, you don't have to run for Congress. You could run for state office, city office, county office, school board, town council. You could run for other things. But if you don't want to run for office, you don't have to. But you could be very active in your community, and you could get a lot done just by being actively engaged in the democratic process, going to meetings, making phone calls, writing letters, leafletting, helping a candidate who runs. So you don't have to run for office. If you're thinking about running for office, I would just make sure you're real sharp with the issues. Make sure you know. I think passion is the most important ingredient to all of this work. You should be passionate about why you're running for office and communicate that passion all the time. Know the issues. Have people that you think will help. All you need is a handful, and if you're lucky, you'll have 500 more come out to support you. And then and you're going to be nervous, you're going to be scared, but do it anyway. I mean, I would advise young people to, whatever makes you scared, do that thing, whatever it is, not just running for office, but whatever it is, especially if it's not self-destructive. Because every time you show courage in that way, and sort of conquer your fears, you grow as a person. Like, you stretch yourself as a person, and what you're capable of accomplishing becomes, it grows. So every time you feel nerves or anxiety, whatever, be aware of it. Take a couple deep breaths, and then do it anyway. Because that's how you grow. And especially if you're doing it in a safe space where, like, the biggest loss is going to be your own psychology, right? So it's like, you know, it's something that we all need to do. We got to stretch and push ourselves to be our best selves, because when we do that individually, we create a better world. So yeah.
Just before we kind of wrap up, we would love to take a picture.
Cool. Georgia, are you on the phone? Are you going to take a picture with us, with me and the kids?
I can get in the picture if you want me to. I didn't want to crash the party.
Yeah, Georgia is my comms director. She's amazing. She used to do comms for Bernie Sanders. So she's awesome. And okay, we're ready. Did someone take it? You got it?
I got a couple.
Okay, send it to Georgia, okay, so we can post it too.
I will.
Awesome.
And then that's all of our questions, but if you had any questions for us.
No, I don't have any questions. First of all, that's way too many questions. This is like, you guys are crazy. That was that was like 50 questions. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna do my best to get through these questions. That's like more questions than I ever answered on the campaign trail. So thank you. It's good. It's good practice. I have no questions for you. You know, I just, you know, I'm so proud of you all. You guys and girls and gals and other really inspire me. You know, like I'm just super inspired by all of you. So I just want to tell you that. And the world really needs you because there's so much ugly in it, and we just need light and love and joy. And yeah, I would just say, you know, continue to do your work from the perspective of love and joy. You know, it's a lot to be angry about and saddened about and all of that, but like we're here, you know, so we have an opportunity to do some real good, and that's pretty exciting. And just, you know, I would encourage you, you know, you all have peers who go to other schools who may not be as engaged as you all are. If we could figure out a way to pull them in, let's do that. And if you need me to come speak on the Zoom or any of that, I'm more than willing to do so, because we need all of you, you know, to move things forward. We're already moving a lot forward, which is nice, you know. But we could, you know, we could like, I mean, we could do anything, you know what I'm saying? Like we could, like, if we do it right and enough people are involved and they're doing it from the perspective of love, we could make sure we never have a Donald Trump again, or at least not for a very long time. And really build a world that people can't even imagine right now. So I want you all to have radical imaginations and radical dreams of what the world could be. So no question, just a few final words.
Okay, thanks for coming.
Thank you so much for being here. We
Of
really,
course.
really appreciate it.
Yeah,
Thank you for having me. Mia, I love your hair.
Thank you.
Mia, have you ever been blue? Has it been blue?
No, but I was actually planning on doing that next.
Yeah. I used to yell at my students, like, what the hell are you doing with your hair, man? Your hair was very nice, brown or black. They're like, nah, Mr. Bowman, you don't understand. So I'm like, all right, I'll leave it alone. So keep it going. Peace and love, y'all. I'll talk to you soon, okay?
Thank you for answering our 20 questions.
No problem. Yes. Oh, give me the heart. The heart. Am I doing it right? Yes. The heart. Can we do a heart picture? Is my heart good enough to do a heart picture?
Okay. I'm gonna try to take a screenshot and also do a heart. We'll see how this goes.
All right, hold on, wait. You can't do it. Do a half heart.
Okay.
We good? You got it?
Got it.
All right,
Okay.
so that's that one too. See y'all later.
Awesome.
All right, bye.
Okay. Thank you all for coming.
Oh, just a quick debrief. How was that? Whoever can stay.
Brittany.
great.
Okay, great.
Like, do you want like specific, like,
Yeah, like I want your opinion.
I feel like he's definitely great. Like he definitely answered all the questions very well. I feel like, I mean, I don't know if this is like, you know, people's job when we're interviewing them, but maybe like more specific questions in terms of like actual like specific actions in terms of like legislation and stuff like that. I think that'd be both like educational and also just
Right. I mean, the questions that we had about specific plans, he said he didn't know. He was like, "Oh, I don't know about the plan. We just need it to happen." So that was that.
I think he was really nice. He was really like genuine.
Yeah, relatable, I think.
Yeah, definitely. Hashtag relatable.
Any other opinions? Neve, I kind of saw some facial expressions. Like,
I'm just a very reactive person. I'm sorry.
oh, okay. So, okay.
I love him though. He's a great man.
I have to go, but I thought that was pretty good. I thought you and Margot did a really good job.
Okay, great.
That was awesome.
Thank you everybody for coming. Bye everyone.
Okay.
Thank you.